Get ready for some upbeat banter, plenty of laughs, and a whole lot of love for the game and our team. This is Buds and Blue Jays. And now your hosts, Riley McConnell and Jesse Burrell.
Good evening, everybody. It is Sunday, June 30th, and welcome to episode 190 of Buds and Blue Jays. It's your place for all things related to the Toronto Blue Jays. As usual, two-man show. Jesse Burrell, joined by Riley McConnell. We tried to get our friend Jesse on here. Ultimately, bad internet connections. We know that story so well on our episode. So for tonight, we're running the two-man show. The Blue Jays did some very exciting things this week. Ultimately, we split 2 games against the New York Yankees, 2 out of 2. We are not going on that big run, but we're not falling any further behind than we really need to. And a lot of storylines did come out of this one, including Vlad and George Springer tearing the cover off the ball. Justin Turner's doing nice things. Chris Bassitt is literally one of the strongest pitchers and best pitchers in baseball right now. Plus, we give some thoughts on Tim Mayza being DFAd, some struggling performances on our offense and pitching side, and so much more in this episode. But Riley, you were at the game today. You saw some of this stuff. How are you feeling about the Toronto Blue Jays and this series?
Well, that was the final game of the series. We already had lost big in this series. I will say that we took a big win. It was a very offensively loaded series for any team at a time. And today, the Yankees bested us to get the split. And it sure as heck didn't really feel like a split when it was said and done. 4 games against the Bronx Bombers, and they did exactly that. If Kevin Gausman wasn't finding the outside of the strike zone, if he wasn't missing with his pitches, he sure was hitting the Yankees barrels. They lit him up today, man. A ton of hard contact to go along with 5 walks. I believe you said something, one of his worst starts, if not his worst start of the season, kind of as an accumulative stat, whatever you want to call it. Jesse, of course, the numbers guy in baseball, me with 2 eyeballs and half a brain, can look at that start and go, wow, yeah, Kevin Gausman did not have that. And I looked at the first couple pitches because I wanted to see that. One of the stories with him, Jesse, has been his velocity. So I always like to look at the Jumbotron up there and off the side. And I looked and I was like, okay, 93.7. Like, that's not terrible for his 4-seam fastball to start this ball game. He's also pitched high velocity we've seen in the 4th and 5th innings of his start. So I'll take that velocity to start. I thought we were, in for a good time. He got Volpe to strike out the first batter of the game. And then boom, Soto singles, boom, Judge home run. And then that was the ball game. And that was 1 out in the top of the first. We did not climb out of that hole. That was the 8-1 loss in game 4 that happened today. Of course, there were 3 other ball games, though, Jesse.
Yeah, there was a lot in this series. Yeah,
you can expect a lot to happen in a 4-game set against New York Yankees.
Yeah, let's talk about Kevin Gausman because that is the most recent thing that happened here. And ultimately, there were more impactful performances in this series, but Kevin Gausman is one of the big ones here. You're right. Velocity was fine on all the pitches, but it's just like what has been happening all year with Kevin Gausman. The 4-seam fastball was getting crushed. The splitter just wasn't moving as much as it normally does. And the Yankees just really, and it's location too. And also the Yankees did put some very good swings on some Kevin Gausman pitches today. In terms of earned runs allowed and walks allowed, which is the big thing, 5 walks for Kevin Gausman today. And that simply cannot happen when your stuff doesn't simply look as good. I think it comes down to when the season's over and we look back at Kevin Gausman's season this year, it's either going to be one of 2 things. One, it's either going to be he's getting old. He's got a lot of innings under his belt over the last few years, right? Maybe he's starting to show signs of decline. Maybe this is just who Kevin Gausman is now. Or you can take a look and be like, hey, this is a guy who didn't pitch at all in spring training. I think he got into 1 game and it was the last game of spring, right? And then he never really got into it. So maybe the injury is kind of stuck with him all year. And then he comes back next year and he returns to the same guy. I think it's going to be one of those 2 things for Kevin Gausman all season. And I think no player needs the All-Star break more on this team than Kevin Gausman.
I mean, that's extremely wishful thinking, in my opinion, Jesse. I would like to think that, hey, there is still a Cy Young caliber pitcher in Kevin Gausman.
Yeah.
But I am slowly starting to believe the discussions you and I had preseason, him not getting spring training, I think that's not going to turn out to be detrimental on his decline. But I certainly think that it has started the ball rolling on maybe a possible earlier decline than we thought. Kevin Gausman also not a guy with a real long prime as of right now. If you want to call Kevin Gausman from since the COVID shortened season, he's only had 3 prime years in his career. If that, before that, he was kind of an innings eater in the late 2010s. And then now, I mean, hey, he's still a great pitcher. We still, put him out for every single start that he's going to do. But the confidence for me personally, and I think a lot of other fans, it's just not there right now. And I think against a good hitting team like the New York Yankees, I mean, sure, he can dice up a Rockies team. He can dice up White Sox
Oakland team.
But yeah, you go and you throw 9 complete, a shutout. That's great. But we got to be able to, pitch against our contenders. And that's a team like New York Yankees. They're a good ball club. And he did not have it today. And we paid the price. I mean, ton of walks, 7 earned runs that simply can't do in 4 1/3.
Just wanted to be noted, too. Think of the 3 Toronto Blue Jays pitchers who really struggled with injuries this spring. It was Eric Swanson. Well, Eric Swanson was off for other reasons, but he also didn't pitch much this spring. Jordan Romano was dealing with injuries this spring, and Kevin Gausman was dealing with injuries this spring. And now all 3 pitchers have not been effective this season. I know spring training stats don't matter, but I think that is something to pay attention to going forward as we move on. Riley, a lot to talk to. Let's move on from Kevin Gausman. We've talked about him quite a bit. I want to turn things to the offensive side of the ball, and 2 players in particular had really good performances in this series, and you know who they are. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and George Springer. Vladdy had a stretch there, I believe. It was 6 straight games with multiple RBIs, and he had extra bases in almost all of them, I want to say, including a bunch more home runs. George Springer as well got on base. I think it was 3 times in game 3, twice in game 2. He even hit some more home runs. He had a game where he had a 3-run home run in the first inning and a 3-run home run in the second inning. I did not think that was even possible from George Springer based on what we've seen so far in this series. In fact, the Blue Jays drove in, I believe it's 24 runs in this series. George Springer and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. drove in 18 of them. Like absolutely insane from what those 2 players have been doing. I guess I have 2 questions here. One, is this who we got from George Springer now? Is George Springer back? Like, has the cold streak been broken and now we can come back to this? And then a question on Vladdy, I suppose, is, I guess, similar along the same molds, but is he this hot player? Is this the MVP Vladdy? Did we finally unlock him? So on and so forth. Riley, let me know what you think.
We're gonna start with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. because I think this one is the easier one to kind of address, right? Sure. This is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. now warming up to the 2024 season. I think that he was off to a less powerful start. I think and I don't know if it was a conversation I had with you or if I was listening to the television or what. I think the change of his physique had a lot to do with it. And I think him being kind of a more strapping guy, hey, look what he did today on defense. He's made some unreal stretches, but I think it might have changed a little bit of his bat tendencies, which is fine. He's certainly learning to his new muscular toned body, the non-traditional first baseman. He's a bulky dude. I wouldn't call him stocky. But he's still, he's still figuring it out. And I really like what he did in this series. He was hitting the ball in the air and he was hitting the ball with authority. I mean, Jesse, you've been quoted saying this team is only as far as Vladimir Guerrero Jr. will take us. And it almost cringes me when you say that in a way. Because I know how good Vladdy can be. And then I sit and watch him not drive in runs. And I still have that thought that you say linger in my head. So now it makes me feel a lot better for us for this show. When we say something like that, and now it's backed by, okay, we're winning ball games and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is driving in those important runs. I think that he's warmed up to this year. I think that you're going to see probably not, 5 home runs in 6 games, but I certainly think
hard to expect that to keep going.
I think you're going to see the extra base hits start to pile on from here on to the end of September. Now, for Mr. George Springer, I think this is a different case. I think that John Schneider and some other coaching staffs and players lit a monumental size fire under this guy's ass. And he's basically like crap. Like, I don't know. He's got something to play for now. There's there's people who like watching all these things like, what do we do with George Springer? And non-baseball people saying trade him. Like, we can trade him. The contract is atrocious. We're going to get no value. This is a contract we got to eat, or we got to cut him and then basically take our loss on that. Whatever. We got to salvage the baseball we can out of him. And if we get series like this, that's great. But listen, viewers, listeners, whatever, however you're streaming our Buds and Blue Jays platform, don't expect a ton from George Springer. I think if you're going to look back on this year, it's going to be his best series by far. First of all, 6 RBIs, I think, is a career high for him anyways.
Yeah.
Hitting from the leadoff spot. Well, he didn't hit from the leadoff spot in this particular game. It's kind of hard for the leadoff guy to get 6 RBIs, but traditionally was. I think he stays where he is, kind of in the order. 5 is where I would put him right now, just because he's swinging a hot bat. But I have a feeling this is not going to continue, Jesse. I don't know if it's just me. Look, it's not promising. It's just good because we needed that kind of performance from him to kind of validate some playing time. And when he starts to falter, then let the younger guys go in and take some reps in right field.
A few things that actually give me hope that this is more than just positive regression or a blip from George Springer is, one, if you notice his batting stance, it's actually somewhat changed. He's lowered his hands a little bit to try to get him to be quicker to the baseball and shorten his stride length, which, as you get older and have trouble hitting the fastball, that's a better thing to do. And also, Riley, he was starting to hit the 4-seam fastball again. Both of his 3-run home runs on 4-seam fastballs. I think he hit a home run off, I think it was Carlos Rodon, maybe, or maybe that was Vlad, but either way, it was like a 97-mile-per-hour fastball that he crushed, hit out there to the pull side in the air for power, which is all things we wanted. His double he hit in game 2, again, 93-mile-per-hour fastball, he hit to left center. I thoroughly said, wow, when I saw George Springer do that, because I don't think I've seen George Springer do that to a fastball since maybe 2022 when he was coming back from injuries. It's been a while, so positive signs for George Springer. In fact, he accumulated just the series alone like 0.9 WAR, almost 1 WAR in one series alone, which is absolutely insane for a player not named Shohei Ohtani to do. Very good stuff from George Springer. And I'm leaving this series still skeptical, but a little more hopeful that we can get something positive from George Springer.
I'm extremely skeptical, Jesse. I mean, I don't like to bash our own guys, but like at this point with the result that we've gotten up to this point, one series doesn't make or break it's not going to make or break George's season. He needs to keep compiling on, and I don't know if that's going to happen.
Okay. Let's talk about a player then that I'm a little skeptical about, that I think whose recent hot streak is kind of more phony than anything else. And it's Justin Turner. You know this if you've been listening to the show. I've been kind of out on Justin Turner for a while. We have been giving him props on our last few episodes because he has been slowly putting things together. He also had a good series here. His hit he had in game 1, which is that little first base chopper that rolled up the first baseline, literally hit the bag, and then Turner got in there, might actually be my favorite individual base hit I've seen of the season so far. And there's a stat that's going around that you might have seen, but if you look at his WRC plus by month, it was good in April, and April it was like 119-ish, and then in May it was dreadful. It was 8, like literally 8. We talked about that, and it was sucks, but it's been 171 over the course of this month in June, but a lot of it, Riley, has just been singles and walks, and I don't want to discredit that. Singles and walks are very good. They still count. We still need them. But he's only got 6 extra base hits this month, and he's not driving the ball with much authority at all. So I feel like it's been BABIP driven from Justin Turner, and I also think it's going to come down a little bit as the season goes on. Do you have a thought on Justin Turner's recent hot play?
Again, I'll lump him in with George a little bit here because I feel like a younger player that's hungry, a Horowitz can replace him full time if you want to make some changes there, in Ernie Clement, because we can DH, a guy just to give him a day off. We have a ton of guys in this team to play defense that can play defense. We don't actually need Justin Turner once his bat goes cold. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. It's just like the Vogelbach. He provided little versatility, and when he didn't produce, I mean, what is he to us? It's not like he's a David Ortiz type designated hitter, and Edgar Martinez. He's not that kind of guy. And at 39 years old, we knew, Jesse, that we probably weren't going to get a 30 home run, 285 batting average type season from him. which we shook our heads in the first place of why we signed this guy. And it was kind of, series like this, they're great. But again, they're just kind of raising your stats for that time. And if they don't help our team wins, I mean, he hasn't done a whole lot in the clutch as of late. Yeah, he's kind of accumulated, but we need those more clutch hits. Vladdy's done it. George certainly did. And to me, Justin Turner is kind of on the odd man out. If he goes cold, again, I don't want him in the lineup.
The Blue Jays are absolutely just going to put Justin Turner in the lineup every day from now until the trade deadline and hope just some team can bite and use him as veteran experience as they go on a postseason run. And I think that's got to be the play for Justin Turner. On the offensive side of the ball, we do have to talk a little bit Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. We don't have to spend much time on it, but this was a revenge series for Isaiah Kiner-Falefa against the Yankees. And I think it goes to show you a lot that in game one of this series, he got hit by a pitch 3 times in that series, which I think that's the most a player has been hit by a pitch in a single game this season out of all of Major League Baseball. So obviously 2 of them were by sliders. 1 of them was by a fastball. None of them were intentional, but I thought it was very funny or comical that Yankees fans hated Isaiah Kiner-Falefa when he played for them, comes to Toronto, is having the best offensive year of his career so far, gets hit 3 times in game 1, then goes and hits a home run in game 2 of this series. Then also, by the way, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa has 4 hits in game 3 of this series. And let's give him credit here too. He played shortstop every single inning that Bo Bichette was on the IL. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa might be one of the most unsung heroes of the 2024 Toronto Blue Jays season so far.
I really like what IKF has done this year. I will say that it has pleasantly surprised me. He's going to pass his home run season high this year. He's going to hit career highs in slugging, possibly on base percentage. His defense is excellent. I'm a confident viewer when I'm watching Isaiah Kiner-Falefa play the infield. He's certain. I mean, the versatility to him is great defensively, obviously. And the bat is a nice surprise. I mean, it is really weird to see him be in the 1 or 2 spot on this team. I don't know how much I love that or if that's really the long-term solution. However, Jesse, I mean, I would say slowly, but I also like kind of quickly, he's jumped up the leaderboard on the Blue Jays hit marks as far as the counting stats go. I mean, IKF has been one of our more consistent players on the season. And that sounds insane to even say. When we looked at this guy, and a lot of people looked at him and thought, wow, this guy's going to be a liability at the dish. I mean, he's going to bat just ahead of Kiermaier, it seems, in the batting order. And now we got him in the top 2 in our lineup sometimes. So, I mean, that's really good because he's really making a case that the contract he signed with us looks really, really good. It's unfortunate we're not winning right now because that would look a lot better. But for what we need right now, he's an excellent presence and he's getting it done at the plate, which I can't say for a lot of other Blue Jays hitters.
Yeah, I just find it absolutely hilarious that he has a higher OPS than Anthony Volpe right now, who the Yankees fans were all in love with to start the single season here. So very good stuff from Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. Just mad props where things go. On the offensive side of the baseball, Riley, not too much to stand out. Bo Bichette, 3 for 15 in the series. He did have a double. He had the 3rd highest exit velocity for the Toronto Blue Jays this series, so I do think some positives from Bo Bichette there. And then I want to touch on some maybe negative things in this series. The only Blue Jays to draw walks in this series, I believe, were Justin Turner, George Springer, and I'm missing one, but they're probably Vlad. Oh, I don't even think it was Vlad. Only one other Blue Jay drew a walk in this series. The rest of them did not. Like, there was a lot of baseball players on this team that were not drawing on base via base on balls. I guess when you get hit by pitches, it doesn't really matter as much. And the Jays had a lot of that happen this series. So that caught my attention, this note. And the Blue Jays center field and left fielders in this series. So that would be Addison Barger, Kevin Kiermaier, Dalton Varsho, and Davis Schneider combined to go 2 for 30 in this series with 16 strikeouts. Davis Schneider, especially, 1 hit and was dreadful. So you want to see more from those players because they've been really riding a slump lately too. And I don't know what it's going to take, but we've seen Davis Schneider kind of not play as much for the last little while. We haven't seen Addison Barger play the last few days because they've been going through some slumps. So what do you do in this left field, center field conundrum that the Blue Jays have found themselves in?
Well, so I already mentioned his name, but we're pretty much going to scrap Kevin Kiermaier, unfortunately. Like, a home run robbery just isn't good enough. And that sounds wicked to say because Kiermaier is one of the best defensive center fielders of all time, but he is not a young Atlanta Braves Andrew Jones at the plate as far as how he can hit. He is like I don't even know. I don't really want to insult him either because it sucks. This guy, even though he was a former Ray, and I felt like I didn't have a lot of respect, I respect his game quite a bit now that he's come to the Toronto Blue Jays, which is a very homer thing to say, but that's fine. This is a Blue Jays podcast. But honestly, get Varsho into center. If you want to talk about who's in the corners, if George is playing good, fine, sure. I don't give a crap. Keep George in right field, whatever. We'll see when the wheels fall off there. Put Barger in left against right-handed pitching. Great. That's fine. We've already
Davis Schneider against lefties. Is that the play here?
For now, at least. I mean, he wasn't in the lineup today against Garrett Cole. He did pinch hit after we decided that Vladdy's finger was probably needed to get looked at. But other than that, like if we're gonna, we just can't. I feel like we just can't straight bench Davis Schneider. Limit his at bats, sure. Get him in a platoon against the lefty. Let's still keep his reps in because they're keeping Horowitz in. And look at what he's done. I think Davis Schneider's still kind of the same case. A lot of pressure was on him because of the season he had last year, and we saw him just catapult to the top 3 in the Blue Jays lineup, and he hasn't produced in a bit, and I think that's unfortunate. But I also think if he keeps his reps, I think he'll find a hot streak and still be productive for this Blue Jays team.
Yeah. Davis Schneider, we know, is one of the streakiest players on this team, and he single-handedly has what it takes to carry your team on your back for a week or so. I understand not playing him so much while he's cold, but let him get in there, let him get hot, because we know what kind of damage he can do when he does get hot. I agree with you. And then the last point on the offense before we talk pitching, Riley, I want to talk about our catching situation. Danny Jansen caught 3 of the 4 games in this series. He struggled quite a bit too. Did have a double or 2 sprinkled in there, but also he was really struggling. Note, he is about to go off for parental leave for a few days, right? So that obviously, if you're about to bring a child into this world, can play heavily on the mental toll. Also too, Danny Jansen and a lot of trade rumors. And, sometimes, being in all these trade rumors does affect your physical performance. Maybe he's hurt. I don't know. But let's get a little break for Danny Jansen and have him come back and hit the ground running. And I did just want to throw some love to what Alejandro Kirk did. He only started 1 game, but he had 2 hits, threw out 2 base runners there too. We've talked a lot of Alejandro Kirk. We kind of know what player he is, but he did his job in this series. So I'm not impressed with there. Have a thought on our catching tandem, Riley?
Yes. Jansen needs to pick it up.
Yes,
certainly. I think when we get to this point, I'll say this now to kind of bust down this proverbial wall. I think Jansen's going to be one of the first to go in this fire sale.
Doesn't it?
That's my thought. That is my thought. I think it's Kirk's got to put up, man, because if I was running this team, which I obviously don't, I would do a lot of things to try and keep Danny Jansen on this ball club. But if Kirk's going to need to pick it up, man, because I think that we're going to ride with him as the catcher of the future. I think, myself included, get used to liking Alejandro Kirk. He's going to be catching a lot of Blue Jays games over the next 5 seasons. Put that in writing, Jesse. Mark my words, man. I think that is the route that the Toronto Blue Jays management is going to go.
I sadly think you're right. However, on the outside perspective looking in, I don't think there's one more player the Blue Jays need to re-sign more than Danny Jansen.
Yeah, but that's just the management decision that will get made then, Jesse.
It's true. It's absolutely
true. It's unfortunate. We have talk about the same draft year, I believe. Jansen, Mayza, 2013. Correct me if I'm wrong. Same draft year. They've been on this a
long time. Yeah.
But I think, correct me if I'm wrong. I actually don't care. But they've been on this team for a long time. You're going to see them both go this year. Obviously, Tim Mayza already out the door. Danny Jansen, hopes he sticks around right till the 31st of July. But I don't know, man. I don't see it happening.
Sadly, I'm with you. I agree. The Blue Jays are probably going to trade all these people on expiring contracts. Danny Jansen is one of them, but I would take a big, hard look this offseason at re-signing Danny Jansen and bringing him back here. That might be priority 1 for the Toronto Blue Jays this offseason. We're 25 minutes into this episode. We got to talk more pitching. We've already talked Kevin Gausman, so we can split over him. But the next best pitcher, I'd say, or the most notable pitcher in this series was what Chris Bassitt did, and it started to look bleak for him early as he took that 102-mile-per-hour comebacker off Aaron Judge in the elbow, and it looked bad. He started doing his finger wiggle thing, which I never like to see a pitcher do because that's never really a good sign. But did we expect anything else from Chris Bassitt? Came in, he shoved, 6 innings pitched, 1 run, but it was unearned, so 0 earned runs allowed. He has been fantastic over the course of the year. And my simple question, Riley, Chris Bassitt, all-star this season, yes or no?
Yeah, I personally would give him that all-star nod. Unfortunately, we're biased. And if we only get one Blue Jay starting pitcher, I would probably give it to Jose Barrios, in my honest opinion, although Chris Bassitt has done a phenomenal job. And he is an absolute workhorse out there on the bump. I didn't think he was coming back. I thought he was going to be 3 batters into the game, strand 2 on after taking that in the arm. That was a tough thing to have happen. But he still obviously didn't go to the distance, but produced a quality start. And what else could you expect from Chris Bassitt? Because I feel like that's just him. He's just a tough dude.
He's done all of this too with a BABIP against, so batting average on balls in play, which doesn't always, but generally goes to show a measure of either the defense behind you or the bad luck, of 320. It's 3rd highest in the American League. Also worth noting, Kevin Gausman 6 and Yusei Kikuchi 2nd on that list. So a lot of balls in play, just finding holes behind the Blue Jays. So keep that in mind. 11th best ERA in the American League too. Like, I think when it comes down to the players and coaches around baseball selecting their all-star nods, I do think Chris Bassitt gets on that list. The other 2 pitchers in this series, Yusei Kikuchi was really good until he wasn't. 5 innings pitched, 4 hits. He did give up a big home run, which ultimately blew it. Only walked 1, 7 strikeouts. And Jose Barrios, all the way back in game 1, I thought pitched really good. A very much needed positive start. Threw his changeup a lot more. 7 innings pitched, 2 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 walks, but also 8 strikeouts on those 2 pitchers, Kikuchi or Barrios. Do you have a takeaway on either of them?
I mean, it was really unfortunate for Yusei Kikuchi, man, because the start, I say start, it was his start, but the front half of his start was absolutely tremendous, man. Mm-hmm. Striking guys out, limiting base runners. I'm just doing the Yusei Kikuchi things of new. And then at some point in that ball game, I don't know exactly what the turning point was, but the wheels just completely fell off. And
it got behind a lot of batters, and then he had to throw a cookie down the middle, which got crushed.
It was the floodgates that just opened up for him, and I hated to see that. Barrios, I mean, just kind of an average start for him. We've seen him do better.
Ho-hum, 7 innings, 1 earned run, no big deal.
Right? That's why I like Barrios, man. And it isn't ho-hum, but at the same time, it is, because we need that for the Blue Jays, just to not even compliment that kind of start. Just go, that is Jose Barrios. That is what we're going to get. And hopefully the runs come together so we win those ball games, man. Because the worst thing was if he gave up 2 runs and the offense score 1. Then I have a huge problem. And then it goes on offense, which we're done talking about. But Barrios, for what he did in that game, I recognize that he had a tremendous start. He's had tremendous starts. That's why, for me, if I'm picking one Blue Jay to go to the All-Star game for pitchers, I want Barrios. I want that guy that's I'm not going to compliment a ton on. He just gets the nod for me because that's who he is this year. I feel like the steps he's taken since he's come in Toronto, minus the part season when he was dealt to us from the Minnesota Twins, I think he's gotten tremendously better. And I think that he's going to finish out this year kind of how he started, maybe with 1 or 2 more hiccup starts in there. But honestly, we're going to see a lot of those 1 run through 7 innings.
Fantastic. Sign me up for a lot more of those Jose Barrios masterclass performances, and he will get a start in this Houston series, so we'll talk about that then. To the bullpen, we already touched on Tim Mayza a little bit, but he came in, he gave up 5 earned runs, did not get a out. I had this whole thing put up about Tim Mayza's stats and how it's been and how dreadful he looks, and the Blue Jays probably didn't even need me to post that because they went out and they DFA'd him. So long, Tim Mayza. He was the longest tenured Blue Jay. He is now gone. One of the better guys, like humans, in the game, but this was much needed for the sake of the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen. And some other notes. Riley, the only other Blue Jays relievers who gave up runs in this series was the new guy that we got up for Tim Mayza, Jose Kraus. I don't really know how to pronounce the name, but he came in, gave up a home run in game 3 of the series. And then Nate Pearson also gave up some home runs, which meant Trevor Richards, Genesis Cabrera, Zach Pop, Chad Green, and Brandon Littell all pitch scoreless relief appearances for that thing. Did you have a takeaway on how some guys in our bullpen did this series?
Well, first of all, it sucks. The guys who I liked coming into this year for our bullpen,
Swanson, Romano, Mayza.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. We got to use what we have.
Yep.
We use Bowden Francis a lot. I think that's great.
Yeah.
I think that
that's notable, by the way. 3 out of 4 times for Bowden Francis, because now he won't be available to back up Yariel Rodriguez tomorrow.
Well, and I don't know who we'll see. Maybe Trevor Richards. Really hard to tell. I don't even want to get into Yariel Rodriguez start tomorrow against a team that could possibly really shorten his outing. I'll say that. But as far as the bullpen goes, we've had some tough breaks, but a lot of it is based off performance as well. And in this, it's no exception. Outside of guys like Tim Mayza, we had a couple of essentially guys walk into the game and just give up hard contact right off the bat. Well, we're already out of the ball game. Maybe doesn't matter as much, but it still doesn't look good. And that's kind of what happens. It seemed what was happening. We're already playing from behind. Bullpen comes in and essentially serving up some taters. That's what I felt like anyways.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I just wanted to point out that Brandon Littell just continues to impress me. I feel like he's done some good things. He's probably overtaken he's definitely overtaken Tim Mayza in the depth chart, but he might be our best left-handed option.
We've taken over the depth. We've
That's right.
Over. We're on the same grounds as of right now, which is unfortunate again.
Yeah. And Genesis Cabrera, I did want to throw some love to. When he is on and he is throwing strikes consistently, his stuff is good. His stuff will play. And I just thought he was good in this series, so I want to throw some love to him as well. Riley, the Blue Jays made a trade. So we're talking about the bullpen, and they tried to get some bullpen help. That's how kind of bleak things are, not only for the bullpen here in Toronto, but down in Buffalo as well, where we just traded a 10th round pick in 2023 who had like a 3.60 ERA down in Dunedin. We traded him for a 26-year-old reliever, Yari Rodriguez. So there is now a second Y-Rod in the organization. But Riley, you look at the stats. Not that good. 6.88 ERA for the Texas Rangers this season. And then if I looked at his minor league stats, 6.08 ERA for the Texas Rangers. So a guy who's been giving up a lot of runs, but the Blue Jays just simply need a guy who's probably got good stuff with the pulse. He's been sent down to Buffalo. So add him to your Blue Jays relief depth chart.
Jesse, unfortunately, another guy that is just going to be a high-end AAA guy. Do you want to, like, a AAA ace that probably isn't going to get a ton of high leverage major league situation. But again, we need basically a heartbeat and a readily available arm ready to go. Because in this day and age with injuries and performance, we don't know what to expect. So I am totally fine with that.
Yeah, I was watching the Buffalo Bisons game on Saturday because I got done from work and there was nothing else going on. And I was watching their bullpen guys come in and I was thinking, all right, like who could be the guys here? Mason Fluharty came in, gave up a bunch of runs, and it's like, oh, that's tough. Hagen Danner came in, and although his stuff looked okay, he gave up a few runs too. So I'm thinking like, man, the Blue Jays need bullpen help. And even the guys in Buffalo who you think could provide some help aren't even doing it. So there's a reason this is the second worst bullpen in all of baseball. And it's just... which is wild for a thing we thought would be a strength of this team coming into the season.
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of that has to do with injuries and unexpected kind of occurrences in a way for how we've performed. And of course, Jesse, you're going to, let's say, throw 10 different guys in a bullpen every year on the short side because it could be a lot more. But let's say I feel like 3 out of those 10 guys are probably going to have off years, and 2 of those guys could have really off years, and 1 of those guys could even be cut. It all depends. And I'm not saying that that's going to be your highest guy. I'm not saying that's going to be your closer. But guys who still matter, important pieces to the bullpen, and it's about finding a rhythm. Like, we have a ton of guys on this Blue Jays team that I would consider to be premier setup guys and not true closers in baseball. Chad Green, for instance. If he's pitching like our best pitcher, we step him up, put him into the closer role. If that's Jimmy Garcia, same deal. There's no exception. We talk about riding the hot stick. Whoever's throwing the best, whoever's giving you the best out of high leverage situations, he's your guy coming into the 9th inning in that situation. Three runs lead or less, bottom of the 9th at home. bottom of the ninth, top of the ninth at home, on the road, if the same situation. But essentially, we got to figure out who those guys are that is going to pitch in high leverage. Right now, it's not a lot of people, Jesse.
Riley, can you just take a guess? Just give me a number. We don't have to go into this, about how many different pitchers the Toronto Blue Jays have used this season. So that includes starters and relievers. Can you give me a number?
16.
Yeah. 23 different
23. Okay.
For the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, that does include like Isaiah Kiner-Falefa coming in, and it includes like
Wes
2 innings
Parsons.
from Brandon Iserts, Wes Parsons through 5 innings. So it does include a bunch of that. But 23 different pitchers have thrown a pitch for the Toronto Blue Jays this season. That's a problem.
That is a problem. I also don't count Wes Parsons. That's just that's just sick.
Yeah, Paulo Espino, Ryan Burr are some low numbers on that list.
Do we still have Espino rostered?
He's in AAA Buffalo. He's not pitching well. Don't look at his stats.
I did not plan on it, Jesse, but thank you very much for the heads up.
You're very welcome. I do have some notes for some stuff on the farm. Nothing too crazy. Arun Namala is back with Dunedin, and he's got 4 home runs on the season now. He's been hitting a little bit better since his demotion. He might be the top hitting prospect in baseball now that Orelvis Martinez has been suspended. Aaron Sanchez threw 7 innings today of one-hit baseball, did walk 3, but had like 10 ground ball outs. So it's a long way from saying vintage Aaron Sanchez, but the Buffalo Bisons really need a good start, and they got one today out of Aaron Sanchez, something to watch going forward. And the Vancouver Canadians, one of my favorite minor league baseball teams, have just won 9 straight games in a row. So good for them on the minor league side. Riley, do you have anything else from down on the farm?
Good to have something going all right, I guess, for our Blue Jays organization. I guess it runs deeper than just the major leagues. But for me, and 99.9% of other people who give a crap about baseball, it is the major leagues that matter the most. And we're just not cutting that. We're just not cutting it at that level, man. It's super frustrating. Like, it's cool to get these nice hopeful things, like the fact that we even get into that Aaron Sanchez had a good game in Buffalo. Like, there's just so many different. Baseball is a loopy sport where we can have a 19-year-old guy come up and have a hot start in the major leagues, and we got a 36-year-old or 37-year-old Paulo Espino playing in AAA. Baseball is wild. And also Joey Votto, who's 40 in Dunedin, Florida. So baseball's wacky. We don't know what we're doing as far as there's no correlation between the level you're at and age. Clearly, we are breaking grounds here for the Toronto Blue Jays and their organization.
Yeah, very funny to me to look at that Dunedin Blue Jays lineup and see Joey Votto in the lineup, and hitting behind him is like Tucker Toman and Arun Namala, and it's like a very wide mix of players in there. Anyways, that's all I got for the stuff on the player side, Riley. I did want to know if you had any thoughts. It has been about 4 or 5 days now, but from Ross Atkins' press conference when he met the media before the start of this Yankee series, because we hadn't had a chance to touch on it, my main takeaway, he said what we thought he was going to say. It was a lot of, we still believe in this team, we're not giving up, but we're prepared to sell if we do want to. Did you have a thought on his comment, or just more mumbo jumbo politician speak?
Mumbo jumbo. I don't believe it, man. I think we basically need to go on a 24-game win streak or something, because if we keep splitting these series, like, great, we split a series against the Yankees, but also our record dictates that we need to win a lot more baseball games, because we're not going anywhere. It's great. It's great if we're sitting at 49 wins right now and we just split a series, but we can't split a series and feel good about that, especially when one of those games was getting 8 runs scored against us, 16 runs scored against us. Those aren't feel-good situations. I don't know about you, Jesse, but a comfortable series for me against the Yankees at this point would be if we split it, but didn't give up double digits. If we lost 5-4, so what? So too bad, so sad. It's just we're in a kind of a spot where we're going to be exposed, and I think that the MLB teams around the MLB have a couple players that they might want off of our roster, and if they get a whiff of like what we're trying to sell, I think we got good assets for a lot of major league clubs.
Yeah. Because I think you're delusional at this point. And I think Ross Atkins is delusional at this point. If you think you're going to go on a run and do it, say we do, hypothetical situation, say we play at like a 750 winning percentage the rest of the season. We sneak in, we get to 88 wins, and we get into the wild card. And say we even win a round, right? Say we win the wild card series, we go into the ALDS. Even if we lose that series, the Blue Jays are still exactly where they are at this situation now, right? All the same contracts are under the book. You might have a better idea of who's playing well and who's not, but I really don't think it changes much for the future of this franchise. You might just get lucky, sneak into the playoffs and win a World Series, and that sounds what Ross Atkins is just hoping and grasping at straws for, which is simply just not going to happen.
No, we are not making it to the postseason. 40 minutes into our episode. I mean, I could have started the episode like that.
Yes.
Jesse, we're not good enough. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
We're not here to sugarcoat crap, especially when like we watch the games. Like we can't. Well, let's not kid ourselves, Jesse. First and foremost, like we know what's going on in the field. We try and understand what's going on behind the scenes. And I mean, in the next 2 weeks, and if we keep splitting these games and breaking 500, like if we tied Houston and take 2 against the Giants and then drop the series against the Diamondbacks, and we just played from this moment on 500 ball to the All-Star break, like we're not in good shape. Like time to say farewell to some of these guys that have 1 year left before free agency.
All right, Riley, I agree. It's looking pretty grim, but the Blue Jays are welcoming in their last homestand before the All-Star break. We have a 4-game series against the Houston Astros, including Canada Day at the Dome. Riley, are we going to split that 4-game series too? Or 1 out of 3, 3 out of 2? How's it going to be?
Let's split the series, and you know what? Let's lose 15-2 in the second game after Canada Day. July 2nd, 15-2 or 15-3 we'll lose.
Yikes. That means Jose Barrios is getting lit up, and that means a lot of sad.
Whatever Barrios isn't starting. Let's not have it happen on Canada Day. Let's have it happen on one of the other guys' starts, unfortunately. I like Jose Barrios. I think that he should pitch in the All-Star game for like 2 batters. That'd be great. It feels like the last guy to do that was Manoah, and
3 punches.
Yeah, and he hit a batter in the foot too, top of the foot. He was mic'd up, shoestring indoor or inside slider. But that'll be the last time I talk about Alek Manoah for hopefully another 2 months. Unless he's traded, then that's great. But if not, he is done for the year. I don't know if you guys knew that. Don't know if you knew that.
And with that, that'll be it for our episode here, too. A lot of stuff to cover. Went a little long, but hey, 4-game series against the Bronx, and a lot of stuff went down. We have a special guest, spoiler, I don't want to coming on our next episode, so stay tuned for that. You're going to want to make sure you check it out. Also, the normal stuff, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Please leave us a 5-star review. If you are watching us live on YouTube, like many of you were here tonight, first of all, thank you. And next time, feel free to comment, leave an interaction. We'll come in, we'll chat with you and all that good stuff. Riley, anything else to add before we get out of here tonight?
No, I think good luck to the Blue Jays against the Astros, even though they have not had the luckiest of years. It's the Houston freaking Astros, and they still have their good core of players. Yordan Alvarez scares the ever-living crap out of me.
He's been very, very good. Well, for Riley McConnell, I am Jesse Burrell. We will be back to recap these series against Houston. In the meantime, enjoy the 4 games of baseball. Happy Canada Day to everyone listening, and let's go Blue Jays.
Thanks, guys.